After the data from 50,000 reservations, I can give you the full blueprint, like front to back, bottom to top. And those of you who are already hosts, skip ahead later when you can, because this is going to be a for beginners to masterclass level video, and all the high level stuff is later on, okay? So chapter 1 will be for absolute newbies structuring and starting your business. Chapter 2 will be how to run your business in any regular market, barring anything weird. And then chapter 3 is how to crush everybody, even in the most professional markets. My students have made over $1 billion, and they're like in places like Miami and Nashville and Chicago and all the hard places too. So this stuff definitely does work. So again, thank you for your patience, hosts. And newbies, let's begin. This is for you. I hope you're excited. If you're ready, pump the chat. Let's begin. This will be fun. I want to first talk to you about structuring your business. And I'm going to do it through the story of how I got started, in case you guys don't know that yet. So I started my Airbnb business by accident in 2015. I was already running a different business, building sales teams in the newspaper industry, and I started renting properties to people to get them to move in with me. So through my LLC, I was renting apartments, and then everybody moved out eventually, and I was stuck holding the bag of all this rent. I was just losing money. And then somebody said, oh, I stayed at an Airbnb like last weekend. And that's when I was able to put the dots together and realized I could put these furnished Airbnb, like these properties on Airbnb. But the only reason why I was renting apartments through an LLC in the first place, my friends, is because I went homeless. I got evicted and I had an eviction on my record from 2009. So the only way that I could get by was to bypass my eviction record somehow. And an LLC will bypass your eviction record, criminal record, anything. So that's a little bonus. And so the very first thing you need to do is start an LLC. And you want to do so right away because LLCs, they age. And as they age, they become more mature, like you growing up, for example, right? So you can go online. You do not need to pay an attorney for this. Please don't. It's like $50 or $200. Texas is expensive now. They want $300 for this, but still, you can file it anywhere through the Secretary of State website for your state, okay? And after $50, like places like New Mexico and Wyoming, I think are both pretty cheap, you can then immediately take your online paperwork that they give you from that session, they'll email it to you, and then you go to the irs.gov website, and you just type in you type in EIN number, irs.gov, and it'll kick up a link on Google, and that's where you will file to get your EIN number, and you need to have a file number from the LLC to get that. So in summary, in a day, like right now, you could have a LLC made, doesn't matter what the name is either, and then get an EIN number right now, and you have everything you need to create your business bank account. Now you want to start putting money into a business bank account, but let me tell you another secret from the trenches of my 10 years in Airbnb. My very first LLC, like lease for an LLC, I gave them the paperwork from an LLC that was started 2 days ago, and I gave them my bank statements from my personal bank account as proof of income. When you apply for an LLC, you would do it like this. And I know this is arbitrage only, but let me back out and explain why we're talking arbitrage. I'm going to talk about the other two real quick in case you already have that question. But to get an Airbnb arbitrage, you need to get a lease approved. And to do it through an LLC, you'll need to have an LLC and proof of income, and a bank statement is the easiest way to get proof of income. And I've had buildings let me use my personal proof of income, so this can move fast, okay? So now let me back out and talk about the other ways that people normally talk about starting an Airbnb business. You could buy a property. You definitely could do that. So that is something that you could skip ahead in this video on too, and we could start talking about market research. That does cost more money, so the bar's not quite as low. There's another way that people do Airbnb called co-hosting, which this industry is no longer new. So co-hosting is harder to do as a newbie because there's lots of us out there. I do co-hosting. Almost every one of my students will get into co-hosting because they'll already have all the systems and housekeepers. So it's a very competitive market for co-hosting. Now, if you've heard of something called co-listing, that is co-hosting, but the reason why somebody on the internet came up with the phrase co-listing is to scam you. They want to rob you of your ability to do homework on this opportunity. The only reason why anybody would ever call co-hosting co-listing is so they can run an ad at you, say co-listing, learn to make money. They own that word, and anytime you go search for it, it funnels back to their stuff. But if you typed in co-hosting, you'd see a world of free information. And whoever tells you about co-listing is trying to keep you from seeing that there's good free information out there. That person cannot be trusted, okay? So moving forward, no matter what opportunity you choose, I do recommend strongly that you do choose rental arbitrage first until you at least have one property that you can show that you know what you're doing, and you can use that one property as a case study to start doing co-hosting. That is the easiest way to get into co-hosting for any of you that really wanted to know the answer. And that's what I teach my students as well, okay? So from there, now that you have an LLC and a bank account, I would just recommend putting your regular paycheck in there or just moving some money in and out, because the cash flow into the bank account is what allows you to get approved for a lease, okay? And without going into greater detail, because I have other videos that can super deep dive on this stuff, I want to focus on the blueprint conceptually. Now, as we let that LLC age a little bit, we need to study two things and apply two things, which is the ability to convince a landlord to say yes if you're doing arbitrage, and we need to know that we're going to pick up the right type of property. And I'm going to give you never before sauce. Like, this is a 2025 video. I've got some new stuff for you that I've been teaching my students the last couple of years. I've got two things I want you to learn from me. One is the copycat technique, and the other one is the blitz method. The copycat technique works for anything. Blitz method is primarily for arbitrage and co-hosting, but you can still buy properties using blitz, okay? But before I get into both of those, I want to let you know that I do have playlists available. One is a playlist on talking to landlords. All of my sales scripts and everything that I do to get a yes, that's available on this channel for free. I would recommend you start watching those videos as well. And then I have a playlist on market research. So all this stuff we don't cover in this video because it's a little older, but still very much a staple, you can watch the market research videos and learn how to find good properties on Airbnb, all the other ways. And if you're going to buy a property, market research still. If you're going to co-host, you still want to do market research because you want to make sure you find profitable properties. Okay, that's probably one of the things that is more important now than ever, because the quality of product has gotten better since I started in 2015. That's probably the main difference. Like, I've made over, I think I've already said this, I made over like $10 million in Airbnb. And back in the day, with my very first units from that apartment complex when I rented to my employees, I wasn't good at furniture, wasn't good at design. They were just some apartments, and people still paid plenty of money because there just wasn't any competition. Now, even though that sounds intimidating, that's what's created the copycat strategy, and it's like basically Airbnb for dummies. It's a total life hack. And by the way, this is a live stream, as you can tell. Thanks for tuning into the live stream, my friends. I love seeing you guys down there. I wish I could talk to you here, but I want to do a good job here. These are designed to be full of value, no fluff, no Photoshop, no gimmicks, okay? And I want to make sure that this is clean and easy for you, so I'm going to speak a little slowly on this, okay? The copycat strategy is basically finding a property that we know is profitable and just making a doppelganger. And if you are by a computer or on your phone right now, you can just go to airbnb.com, and I invite you to look anywhere in the world that you would like to start an Airbnb business. If it's Chicago, Nashville, Miami, Dallas, like Calgary, Canada, Mexico City, anywhere in the world, and just type in that city, and then go to your date range and hit I'm flexible, and just search any place I'm flexible. Now here's what's really fun. Airbnb serves us up on a silver platter their very favorite listings, their absolute favorite ones. Airbnb has an algorithm, which we're going to talk about here later. Super important part of this business model is Airbnb's algorithm runs almost everything. And if Airbnb's algorithm says that a listing is the best, we should believe it, because Airbnb is putting stuff in front of you that they know that they're going to sell. That's why the algorithm puts that stuff at the top. It kind of just makes sense, doesn't it? So if we can look at a city and identify that there's a couple of properties that are absolute bangers, we don't need to know why they make money. We just need to know that they make money. And if you copied them identically, once they're booked, imagine like a Michelin star restaurant. Once all the seats are full, no one else can eat there. And Michelin star restaurants are so popular, somebody would love to have another Michelin star so they don't have to wait 4 months for the reservation. So you copy the same thing. You essentially create another listing that is a duplicate of your Michelin star restaurant, and all the overflow would go to you by nature. But I have a bonus for you too. Not only do you get to copycat a listing that we know makes money, but if you watch this channel and study pricing strategy and the algorithm stuff that I give you, many of the best listings in a lot of markets, those hosts still don't know everything else. So you can beat the host who you copied by running the business better, which is super nuts because this industry is still a little sleepy. The bar to get into the business is a little low, okay? So as you find a property, you are going to copy it, all the furniture, everything, property type, property size. And here's the subtle stuff. I want to give you a warning for the copycat strategy now, and I want you to write this down, okay? There are like stats and there are gimmicks. We're going to make two categories here. Stats are like, how many bedrooms is it, right? Is it a townhome? Is it a house? Is it a tree house? Does it have a hot tub? Does it have a pool? Does it have king beds? Stuff like that. That stuff is very easy to understand. Stuff gets a little bit more difficult, especially when you start to look at the gimmicks. We need to write down all of these. Next, we do look at design. Okay, they've got a big leather couch. The house is blue. They painted a lot of it. It's a lot of blue paint. There's not really white walls. There's a lot of blue paint. They got a cool chandelier, big TV. Oh, they got a plant wall. They got a barrel sauna. They got all this stuff. They got a putt-putt outside. The putt-putt outside, the barrel sauna, those are gimmicks, okay? They've got a soaking tub with a cool tray. That's a gimmick. The gimmicks are the marketing expertise that some hosts have to do to make a ton of money. So you're gonna look at listings for their stats, so you can find out what type of property you're looking for, but then all the extra stuff you add to the property, you would count as gimmicks. And if you find a property and can understand their stats and understand their gimmicks, then you have the ability to recreate the listing. So this can be a little tricky if you're not good at the game I Spy. If you've ever played I Spy as a kid, then I think you're gonna do just fine. But I do wanna give you another warning, and I wanna give you a clear example of it. So if you have the opportunity to slow this video down, maybe even pause this video later, search on Airbnb for Dubai. I've got plenty of students in Dubai, and there's something really crazy. There's a section of Dubai, there's two sections. If you go northeast to Dubai, there's a building called the Burj Khalifa. It's like one of the wonders of the world, tallest building, right? Super beautiful property, and you've seen the Instagram people flexing that they're at the pool at the Burj Khalifa, right? Well, they're flexing that they're at the pool because they probably booked a cheaper unit, and I'm gonna get to that here. When you load Dubai and look at the units over by the Burj Khalifa, you will see the Burj Khalifa in almost every photo. The very first photo you see on Airbnb is called a hero photo. And the reason why all of the photos have the Burj Khalifa is because people are traveling for a point of interest, and that is the point of interest they care about, okay? The listings that have a Burj Khalifa view from the unit themselves, data shows that they make more money. If they don't have a Burj Khalifa view from their living room or bedroom, then they have to use a photo of the pool looking at the Burj Khalifa. And that's why you're gonna see so many units that have a Burj Khalifa view from the pool, because they need to show that they have a Burj Khalifa view somewhere, because that's what makes all the money. This is a very subtle part of the I Spy game. So what I do recommend for you, if you go, holy cow, I would have never figured that out, don't feel overwhelmed. Just don't go somewhere like Dubai or Rome where you have to have a Roman Colosseum view. Start a little bit more sleepy. There are markets where a simple 4-bedroom house with a simple, good furniture design style, a decent location like compared to the airport and stuff like that, basic product makes a ton of money in a lot of regular markets, like Midwestern markets. Some of my favorite markets are Midwestern markets, like the Rust Belt, like through Pittsburgh and stuff, totally cool. And then stuff like St. Louis or Oklahoma City, Montana, South Dakota, there's plenty of opportunity there as well. You don't have to do Dubai or Tulum or Dallas or Chicago, Miami, Boston, but there are markets that you can really take advantage of. And that's where we're gonna get into the blitz method. Who's still paying attention and having fun? I hope you're writing notes. Feel free to stop this at any time to catch up on notes. Are we good? Cool, thank you guys. So, the blitz method. This is one of my newest things, but I've actually been doing it by accident most of my Airbnb arbitrage life. If you understand that Airbnb is putting people places that they want to be in a way that they love to be there, you now understand Airbnb. Here's something we're gonna dive into later, and we need to because it's a high-level concept, but I wanna give you this truth right now. We don't make money on property. Properties are not how we make the money, okay? Bake on that, write that down. Headline, underline, properties are not how we make money on Airbnb, okay? Now, the blitz method is finding places that people wanna be because they're up and coming, but hotels can't get there yet. I've got a private list for my students that I do a lot of research on. My most up-to-date stuff is private in Cracking Superhost. I am a coach. And if you want to know about Cracking Superhost, it's in the description. But let me give you some past examples so you can really learn how the blitz works. In East Downtown Houston, where the George R. Brown Center is, if you look on that at the map, the west side of the George R. Brown Center is like downtown Midtown, right? Where all the developed stuff, all the high rises. Well, east of the George R. Brown Center is the 45. And after the 45, everything like 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago was like really kind of grungy. Run down houses, whatever. East Downtown is now super hipster, super cool. And there was a time where there were no hotels because there was too much crime and no reason to be there. Nobody wanted to be in East Downtown. But as soon as East Downtown became livable at all livable, it was so close to the Georgia Brown Center that you could Airbnb and get huge convention traffic. Then the Toyota Center for the Rockets games, Minute Maid Stadium for the Astros games. You were right next to it all at half the price because you were in the bad neighborhood that is like less bad now. But if you wanted apartments or houses on the other side of the 45 on the west side, you'd pay double or triple. And you became way less cost efficient. So the blitz method is finding these neighborhoods that have circumstantially become valuable, but hotels still have to get permits to build. Again, another one that's still a little bit more fresh, you could probably still do this one, is Fishtown, Philadelphia, Northern Liberties specifically. When you go look on Google Maps and type hotels and you're over Northern Liberties, there's like no hotels. And one of them that you'll see is called Locale. Locale is a short-term rental company like mine that made basically a hotel out of an apartment complex. They did that because it's one of these upcoming blitz-style spots, super hipster, great restaurants, really walkable, but no hotels. And if you learn where these types of opportunities are and you combine it with the rest of my market research, you can find banger property types that will absolutely crush and you don't have to worry about the competition of hotels. Wouldn't you just love to make a ton of money for 5 years until hotels caught on? Wouldn't that be really cool? And you know what? A lot of people think that Airbnb is like real estate. But let me tell you what, if I can find a building that will give me apartments, that those apartments will make me $15,000 net profit per year each, and I pick up 20 of those, right? And I'm making like $300,000 a year, but I only can do it for 3 years. And then a hotel will get there and I won't make $15,000 anymore. I might only make like $7,000 or $8,000 a year. I'll take the $900,000 for 3 years, thanks. And I will decide on year 4 if I want to stick around for $100,000, $125,000 a year. I'll make that decision later. You should take the money now. You have a good opportunity for even a year or two. Take the money now because you know what? You can take the furniture and move to another building. You can find another hotspot. And if you just jam profit using the blitz strategy, you might hop around neighborhood to neighborhood every couple of years, or you stick it out if the money's still good. But man, it just makes so much money. I hope you like that one. Please like the video if you like that. So, market research also, I do have a playlist down in the description for all of my market research techniques. There's a lot of little nuanced things that you need like a screen share for. And I tell you what, all that basic stuff is still very valid today. So it's not outdated. I promise you it's not outdated. So let's talk about launching a property and running a property, okay? If you guys are ready for that. So launching a property. Once you get a landlord to say yes, or you buy a house, or you get a co-host agreement, whatever, we now need to time our furniture. This is kind of like more of a high-level thing that really just makes you like an extra couple $1,000, right? If you time your lease to start around the time that your furniture will arrive, you don't burn any days of possession, right? So I like to go online, look at Amazon, Wayfair, Sofamania.com, Overstock, and I look for the couch that I like the most for my design. And by the way, I do have a design playlist also. So we will talk about some design trends here in a second, but I want to talk conceptually about the launch. We find the couch that works for our design plan. We find out how long it will take to get delivered. We then tell the landlord we will start our lease a couple days before that delivery date, right? So if it says June 1st delivery, I'll start my lease end of May because I don't want to start my lease and then wait 6 weeks for my couch to come. Burning 6 weeks of rent is an absolute no-no. So this makes common sense when you think about it, but some people get a little overexcited and they sign the lease right away and then they're like this for a month. Not cool. Starting it a few days early is great because you still are probably going to do some gimmicks like we talked about, painting some walls, putting up a plant wall. One of my favorite things to do right now is to bolt a hanging chair from the ceiling. Not all properties can pull this off, but the ones that I can pull this off, like a hanging basket chair or a birdcage chair, looks so sick in the photos. Everything we do is for the photos, by the way. So think about that. Now, food for thought on the furniture that we buy, okay? The design plan still to come, my friends, okay? So sit still. We want to consider furniture that is replaceable. So we want to buy something that we know we can find a manufacturer who's still going to give us the same thing, or we can find another manufacturer with a very similar product. Because if something does break, whether it's a coffee table or a couch or a TV stand, and we have a design and we want to stick to that design, we don't want to end up like having to replace a coffee table and changing the look because we can't find the coffee table that we bought initially. That would force you to have to take new photos, and it's a mess. So replaceability is huge. We also like durability. I don't like IKEA furniture for this reason. A lot of IKEA furniture just kind of breaks, and we have to be careful on Amazon. The cheap stuff does break too. So solid wood is really good. I do like metal. The metal and glass stuff is hit or miss. There's going to be these screws that tend to go in. You can Loctite those and they'll stay for a lot longer. So there's like a couple extra steps that you can do. Just make sure that anything that you buy that has to get fastened together, you make sure that it cannot unfasten. And mechanics have like Loctite stuff for their screws. So just like cheap, do the same way. Another pro tip for durability too is the bed. Imagine that you have a bed break in the middle of the night and the guest falls into the floor. They're going to be so upset that they're going to want a full refund. And a bed is one of the things that people probably like to use the most when they're trying to have their dream romantic vacation. I don't have to get crude, you know what I'm saying. So if a guest is in the middle of their business and the bed breaks, double furious. So what I do is whenever I buy beds, I also buy a metal like Amazon Basics frame, like a super sturdy one, and I put that in the middle of the bed. If you look at hotels, they kind of do their own version. They make this box on the floor, and so that you can't even put anything on their bed. There's like a box and the mattress goes on top. This serves them two purposes. The box does not break, so the mattress never falls to the floor, and no one can put stuff under the bed and leave it there. So housekeepers cannot forget to sweep under there. If you've ever gone to an Airbnb with a regular bed, you might find dust bunnies under there. And guests, they like to try to get refunds, and if you left a dust bunny under the bed, it would affect you, okay? So these kind of considerations for where we furnish, replaceability, durability, we want, of course, a good aesthetic. We want it to be cleanable. So fabric on couches can be tough because people can stain it, but leather, it's really hard to stain leather, for example. Now, if somebody rips leather, it has to get repaired, but Airbnb will pay you when guests do damage. I would rather have a leather couch that I have to bill a guest a ton of money to replace than to have a couch that gets stained really easily, because that'll happen way more frequently than someone ripping the couch. Okay, let me say that again. A stain will happen 10 times over before somebody rips or scratches a leather couch significantly. So the frequency at which we have issues with fabric is not nearly as common as with leather or hardwood or other stuff like that, okay? So write that down for your considerations. Now, design plan. If you're using the copycat strategy, you can go to a friend who has like design experience, or put the photos into ChatGPT and go, what kind of design is this? I want to copy this. Coach me on what I need to buy to copy this listing. Or you have a design friend say, okay, they're doing mid-century modern, they're doing Japandi, they're doing boho, they're doing farmhouse, and they'll go, okay, so these are the things you need to buy. I will tell you, some of my students are so new to this kind of design concept that if you showed them a photo of a listing, and I asked you to write a list of what's all in there, they will forget to mention that there's a rug on the floor. They will so miss the rug on the floor. Like, we take these things for granted because we live in properties all the time, don't we? And so this is something that you would need to take a little time. Make sure that your list includes everything on there if you do the copycat strategy and buy everything. I will also tell you, no matter how good of a job you do, maybe I'm just being biased because I'm ADHD, but no matter how good of a job you do, you will forget stuff. I probably forgot toasters for like a solid year and a half, 2 years. I probably said like 50 properties, and I never bought a toaster. I'd always have to go run to Walmart or somewhere to buy a new toaster. I just always forgot it. Hair dryers too, stuff like that. So just be prepared and flexible for when you launch. You're going to forget some things. So you would like to do inventory, but don't fret or be too hard on yourself, because we're all just humans here, right? We're not that special. And so if you're not using the copycat strategy, and you have a design style that you think is going to work, or you want to come up with a new design style that you think is going to work, my pro tip for you is to pick something that contrasts, something that is rare. I have actually a new student from Nashville. They've watched some of my free content, and they decided to get into the business just on the free stuff from this YouTube channel. And they got 5 beautiful, amazing properties. And their intuition said to do this, that they were looking at all the properties and everything was like bright and light blue and bubblegum pink and Barbie and stuff. And they're like, you know what, we're going to do dark tones. And they are massively booked. Their prices are higher than everybody else, and everybody loves their listings because in a sea of bubblegum pink, they have like plum and deep blue and all this stuff. And it's so cool. But not only is it so cool, it's so rare. So when you think about doing something of your own, go for rare and contrast. So either copy the best one listing or like go against the grain. Those are going to be your best 2 strategies. Now, there are some design trends that people really do like. One of our coaches, and we have 7 coaches in Cracking Super Roast, by the way. One of our coaches, she's a famous designer. She builds designs for restoration hardware, Pier 1 and stuff. She's totally high level. And she's been talking about some design trends. Some of my favorite that are a little bit older, because I'm not going to give you all of her modern ones, there's a Scandinavian style where they paint the walls really dark. So the furniture's still really light, but the walls are like nearly black. One of my new students, we're going to do that in an A-frame cabin. We found some proof of concept, and it just looks so sick. They're like renovating an A-frame that they're buying. And the Scandinavian with black walls in the A-frame cabin looks the coolest. I'm in love with it. I'm just absolutely in love. Another one is Japandi. I think Japandi is a little bit newer. And what's cool about Japandi is it's a little bit minimalist. It's very clean. And of course, people love Eastern influences. I'm not a fan of farmhouse, but one thing I love to do is I like to boho everything. You can take any design style and find a way to boho it. It's just like, just mesh them together. I like Gothic boho is my favorite. Like very, very dark walls, like black deep purple, and then lots of plants. Gothic boho, dark walls and plants, and it's really cool. Again, I do have a playlist on design, stuff like that. And you guys can hit me in the comments. You're like, hey dude, what kind of, is this design cool? I might ask you what market you're in. I'll go look on Airbnb to see what's going on in your market, and then I would give you an answer based on the contrast. Whenever I design a space, I'm either looking to do my copycat strategy, or I'm looking to break through the noise and do something completely different. So before you launch your property, and I want to really nail this, guys, the money that you spend now before the property launches, you cannot take it back. You cannot unwind this part. So market research, research for design, buying the right stuff when you stage, and painting the walls the right colors, setting up the right gimmicks, this is a forever decision for this listing, as long as this listing lives. 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, this is the stuff. At one point, 5 years from now, right, when the furniture starts to degrade enough and you need to do a full overhaul, you could give it a completely new look 3 to 5 years later. But for now, your return on investment will be printed on your current decisions for the next 2 years. Okay, so be a little careful when you choose your design. Who's still with me? You guys having fun? I know this is getting long, isn't it? This is a full blueprint. I did promise you a full blueprint. Now that we have design figured out, we are going to launch the property. Now, launching the property is mostly about how you create your listing, okay? When you create your listing, you are going to focus on your first photo, which is your hero photo, and your next 4 photos. Because if you go to desktop right now on Airbnb and you take a look, the Airbnb platform will show 5 photos, okay? And when it shows 5 photos, let me make sure that this is good. Cool. I want to make sure that this is still on. So when you have 5 photos, it's like when somebody clicks on your listing, they see your hero photo and your title and they click, the first 5 photos create a collage and they need to know that it's good. They just need to know that that's beautiful. Otherwise, they'll click away. One thing I said a year ago, and Airbnb actually decided to get honest with us like last month, they said that they want to be more like the Amazon of travel. Well, a year ago, I did a video on how to hack the algorithm. I said Airbnb's changed their algorithm to be more like Amazon. And so we want to imagine your listing like a funnel. So when you set up your listing, you want to think of it like a funnel. Your title and your hero photo is your top of funnel. When somebody clicks, the next 5 photos is really going to be like where the mid funnel starts, and then the description, how you write it, everything else will be middle of the funnel. And then engagements, they're going to send you messages. Airbnb tracks messages as part of the engagements. They track views and site visit duration and all that stuff. And then at the bottom, it's booking and then feedback information, like whether or not somebody liked the booking. They're doing something called right fitting now. This is a little high level, and I do have a full video for this. But right fitting is basically looking at your previous customers and trying to get to know who they are. Kind of like the YouTube algorithm. They want to know who the people watching are. And then whenever somebody searches for a property, if you have 5-star reviews from people with dogs or people with kids or people from a certain part of the world, they're going to show your listing at a higher percentage to people who are similar to the people you've served well. That's the right fitting part of the algorithm. If you nail everybody with a 5-star, it won't matter. But like if you particularly are good for monthly stays, Airbnb will find that out and they'll upcycle you for monthly stays. Isn't that cool? So your pro tip for your title. If you have a king bed, put it in your title, because less than half of listings have a king bed. I recommend it. Have one. Second, load other amenities. If you have a hot tub, if you've got a barrel sauna, if you've got free parking, fast Wi-Fi, your title functions like a subtitle on Airbnb. When somebody shows their hero photo and the title, it actually shows hero photo and then it will say something like home in Denver, and then your title is under home in Denver, but it's not in bold text like a title should be. Home in Denver is what's in bold. So if you make your listing more about amenities, what it does is somebody sees the first photo, they go, oh, that's a really pretty photo. And then there's the wait, there's more part, which is you say, well, yeah, we get lightning fast Wi-Fi, barrel sauna, hot tub, whatever. They go, oh, there's a bunch of stuff in this, cool. That value added title will increase the likelihood that somebody clicks. Okay, so that is your top of funnel tips. And in my market research videos in that playlist, I do talk more about this kind of stuff because we use these facts to determine if a listing is good. When you do market research, we look at your competitors and try to find out who's good at this. And all this stuff I teach you in even just the market research side. So enjoy that stuff. We want to make sure that we've got the right gimmicks, the right stats, which we've already researched. We want to make sure that the listing is complete. Airbnb believes that the more complete your listing is, the more compliant you are, and the more compliant you are, the more likely that the reservation will go well for the guest. So they are actually testing you on whether or not you follow all the instructions when you make your listing. The more complete, the higher you go up in rank, okay? Now, there's some things you don't need to know to start your Airbnb business. Okay, let me grab some coffee here. Who's having fun? We still good? Buc-ee's is my favorite coffee cup. Not my favorite coffee place, but I'm a huge fan of Buc-ee's. I don't know why I said that. ADHD. The things you don't need to know how to do. You don't need to know how to take photos because there's enough professional photographers out there, but you do need to know that your photos should function more like product photography than real estate. So I do have videos on photography. Just watch those. So you can even hand those videos to a real estate photographer. Go, hey, I need you to make sure that these types of photos are in my property. Okay, this guy Sean said so. But you don't need to know how to take the photos. Okay, there's plenty of people for that. You do not need to know how to clean a property. There's plenty of people for that too. I do eventually want to recommend that you start to get more independent with these things because you're going to run a business, right? You want to make the most money. Not overpaying for housekeepers is one of the ways to make the most money, okay? So, but you don't need to know that. You don't need to know interior design. Like this copycat strategy is great, but you can also tag in a friend who can help interpret why these listings are the best. You could even hire an interior designer and go, hey, I found these listings. They're at the top of Airbnb's algorithm. Why do they do so well? Why do they look so good? Can we copy them? And you can hire a designer. So these are the things that you don't need to know how to do. I recommend that you learn sales or persuasion to talk landlords into saying yes. I do recommend that you learn my market research stuff so you can find the right properties. You do not want to cut anybody else in on market research. Why would you tell somebody what makes a good Airbnb property and then they screw you? This is another one of my warnings for you. Overshare. Overshare moment. I've never had business partners because my old mentor got screwed over, right? My old mentor had an accountant that stole like $35,000 from him because he trusted her too much. And a lot of people who start new businesses with business partners have been screwed over. If you're a business owner that's been screwed over by your business partner, sound off in the chat because people need to know that this is serious. And my mentor was one of the most naive, good people I ever met in my life until the world turned on him, falsely accused him of molesting kids, and then he killed himself. And it's very sad. But he has taught me so much about business, and I've never taken a business partner, so no one's ever been able to rip me off. Okay, so I want to deliver that to you. And market research is like handing somebody the keys to the city. If you tell somebody, I can find out what makes money on Airbnb, here's how this works, and you let a real estate agent know or another investor know, they will cut you out and do the business themselves because you just gave them a reason to get greedy. So don't teach anybody else market research. Please keep that in your back pocket, okay? I got grim there for a second, guys, but it's really important. I want you to make money. The person who didn't watch this video, they don't deserve it. You're putting in some time. We're half an hour into a video at least by now, right? You are putting in the time. You deserve to be successful. So keep market research in your back pocket. Now that you're running the business, the feedback loop is going to be the most important part. When a guest shows up, they need to be happy. And I can tell you, I've had a lot of failure as a host. I've probably had more one-star reviews than anybody has total reviews in my 50,000 reservations. I've got tons. And I took 2.5-ish years off the business. And so part of that was like degrading of my portfolio and my team not doing a good job. The main thing my team stopped doing was picking up the phone or calling guests to give them support. That's one of the main things that I've been trying this out last couple of weeks just to see how it affects people. When I see my team in the chat, like talking to somebody and they're like, I can't get the lockbox to work or whatever, I can't get the Wi-Fi to work, and my team isn't being like supportive enough, I'll pick up the phone and I'll call. Instead of chatting I'll pick up the phone and go, hey, I'm Sean, I'm part of the hosting team, how can I help? Light years of customer service ahead of everybody else a lot of hosts at scale get too lazy to call their people. And I promise you, if this is one of the things that you do, is call people whenever something's wrong, you are instantly more human, 100% more human, and they will leave you better reviews because you tried. Now, second, a lot of times people don't get reviews because they don't work for them. Not only do you provide a product, but you kind of have to like influence somebody into wanting to leave you a review. People get too busy to follow up and stuff like that. So here's a hack. This is a high-level hack that even my students, like, they don't implement this enough, and I don't know why. They've learned this, but they don't implement it. Do not automate asking for a review. Automate the conversation that leads there. So here's what I mean. Before someone arrives, you can send a message going, hey, welcome to Dallas. Our properties are just down the street from this really good restaurant and this other really good coffee shop. So if you're looking for something nearby and quick and you really want a great experience, go to one of these two spots. You can automate that message, then do all of your business. And then a couple days later, you can say, hey, thanks for swinging through Dallas. It was really great to host you. Did you ever go to blank restaurant? And how'd you like it? That automated message, they'll go, yeah, I did. It was really awesome. Or no, I didn't get to go. You go, oh, I'm sorry you didn't go. Well, come back soon, because, it's one of our best restaurants. I might even see you there. They're like, oh, cool. Yeah, thanks so much. And now you can say, hey, before you go, please do remember to leave a 5-star review. Airbnb really wants that. So now the conversation can go in a natural way. Yes, I did go. No, I didn't go, whatever. The person needs to know they're having a real conversation, and then you can ask for the review. Because the moment somebody sees that a bot sent them a please leave us a 5-star review, they're like, dude, you're supposed to be an Airbnb host. You're automated messaging me asking for a 5-star. No, I'll just leave you a 3 if I leave you one at all. The 2 times that people really need a human is when they're arriving and when you're asking for a review. Just do that one thing and you will be ahead of 99% of hosts. Because a lot of hosts, they get a little gun shy, they get a little burned by the volume of guests that they have, and they just don't put in the work like that. I swear, that's the hack, okay? So now that you're operating your business and you're in a regular market and your listing is correct and you're giving people good service and reviews, the next thing that you will need to understand is price. Your prices aren't some Wizard of Oz magical thing that you plug into a software and they're always going to be right. A lot of other educators in the space will tell you download Price Labs or Wheelhouse and just use those. Those do help you change your prices. But here's an example of where they can be wrong. I've had students use Price Labs, but they put in the wrong base rate. So now they were $50 too expensive the whole time because a base rate is the rate that Price Labs uses to start, and then they push price up and down. So before we actually use something like Price Labs, we actually have to know what price we do get some bookings on. And then once we know the price we get bookings on, you start Price Labs at that price. They'll push you up and down based on that number. And you should get higher price bookings and lower price bookings because they understand where your anchor was, your real price anchor. But even with that, there's going to be some other hardships because Price Labs, they don't know everything. Wheelhouse doesn't know everything. And they make mistakes. I'm currently testing a new pricing software. I'll be telling you guys that about that in a new video. But I'm testing a different one. And even if you do use one of these softwares correctly because you found that right initial number, we still need to manage it kind of like it's an employee. So you should learn pricing strategy. Understand that peak season, you should be a little bit more greedy in peak season, but when slow season comes, everybody's going to drop their prices. So even before Price Labs says drop your rates, you should drop your rates more first because you want to get booked before everybody else. You don't want any nonsense in slow season. The worst thing that can happen to you, like in Chicago, is that it is the end of January and you don't have any bookings for January, February, early March. Because if it's the end of January and you have no bookings, there's a bunch of other people also with no bookings and they've already dropped their rates. You can no longer win on price. You'd be dead in the water. We want to get that end of January booked like in September. If you do that, everyone else gets screwed and you make all the money all year round, okay? So I do have obviously, can you guess what I'm going to say? I have a playlist on pricing strategy. It's probably my favorite topic. It's very nerdy. It can be a little overwhelming, but start with the very basics to understand that prices go up and down. And this is one that I really encourage you to talk to me about, right? As you learn it, talk to me about price and I'll mentor you through changing your rates. It's probably one of the most important things you can do. And I will give you one asterisk, one caveat. Price only goes so far. So when you link this back to earlier in the video, when I talked about the copycat strategy, if your listing is ugly, you are fighting on price. And in slow season, the listing that you could have copied, the nice ones, They will drop their rates in slow season, and now they're cheap and good. If you're cheap and ugly, but someone else is cheap and good, they will get booked. So pricing strategy will not save an ugly listing in slow season. That's just matter of fact, okay? Write that one down. So now, who's ready for the hard stuff? Who's ready for the big stuff? For like being super competitive? We having fun? How's this sound? We're good? Okay. Phone calls. Yes. Okay. Sorry. All right. I'm back. My ADHD is bad today. So the high level stuff. A lot of my students with houses where they're having the hardest time, like in Miami, there's a ton of houses that make a ton of money on weekends. You have a pool, you have a hot tub, you spend money on the murals. You crush it on weekends, but then on weekdays you're empty. Okay? This is a pricing strategy problem too, but there's another solve for it. Once you learn pricing strategy enough to mitigate this, you will get some of your weekdays booked. You'll get some of them booked, right? I've got things like adjacency logic and all this other stuff that I'm going to teach you guys. But beyond that, there is just too much good supply in these markets because what we need to understand, what I'm hoping to communicate to you is like right now, this weekend is Ultra Music Festival in Miami. And the only reason why I'm not there is because I bought a $1,000 ticket on StubHub and it was supposed to get here yesterday by FedEx and it didn't. So here I am in Dallas, not unsing in a Ultra, and I'm very sad about that. So I'm hanging out with you guys to make it all better. But at Ultra right now, there's like in Miami for Music Week, hundreds of thousands of people, right? And let's say there's 200,000 people going to Miami and there's only 10,000 Airbnbs. Gosh, like all the hosts win. They could charge $1,500, $3,500, $10,000 a night for some of these units, and people will pay because there's just not enough inventory, right? But in 3 days, now that like my Music Week is ending, 3 days from now, like Tuesday, Wednesday, there's not going to be 200,000 people. Imagine that there's only like 3,000 people that want to book an Airbnb, but there's still 10,000 listings. In order for you to get booked now, the 3,000 people will choose from the 10,000, okay? And they will pick the combination of best value, price, coolest look, something that really resonates with them, and the other 7,000 will go empty, okay? So there's two things I really want to talk to you about on competitive markets like this. One is this concept of vibe. If there are 100 Airbnb properties that are 5-bedroom houses in your market, and they're all kind of the same, the white, the blue, the gray, and they all have, functionally, they're all the same. There's no one way to get a customer to like any one of those specifically, right? Unless one has a fireplace or whatever, you know what I mean? Like the small features. But if you can create a vibe, you will speak emotionally to a person who's traveling. And this is the biggest hack of Airbnb, probably for the next 3 to 5 years. Airbnb is about the vibe, and how you create a vibe is the personality of the traveler has to align with the personality of your listing, and they vibe together. So you want to create spaces that have personality and are emotional spaces. And this is not a newbie thing. We're not talking newbie stuff anymore. So this is something that just doesn't necessarily come easy, and you're going to need to look at a lot of listings. You're going to probably want to get in my free Facebook group. I've got a free Facebook group of like 65,000 hosts, and you can start talking about what makes for a good emotionally vibe-driven space, right? And you're going to see a bunch of cool listings there. To capture a vibe, somebody will pay your price because they see your listing, they emotionally like fall for it, they fall in love, they don't care about anyone else, and they want yours. That is the best way in any city, any market to crush it. And a good example is if we go back to Dubai. In the Burj Khalifa buildings, there is one property that has this very light pink look. The walls are light pink. The Chesterfield couch is the exact shade of like this rose light pink color. The whole thing is pink. And it's subtle, but it's amazing. And it makes about 35% more than all of its competitors. And it was a very subtle thing that they did by making everything pink instead of white. And it's not overpowering, but oh gosh, it's the coolest thing. And you're going to find listings like this all around the world. People who've created a vibe. Now, the vibe could be classy, but the vibe could be eclectic, like the Back to the Future like property that you guys have seen on social media. It could be, there's this property in Boston that is like just this very quaint, small upstairs apartment that has a vinyl record player and a lot of really old stuff, and a bunch of books. And that property is always full because people always come back to that property because it feels like home for them. And it's got a vibe. It's got this old town Boston vibe to it. And it wasn't new stuff. We're talking all vintage, right? right? So the vibe can be anything. I need you to stay open-minded for that. If you create a vibe, it doesn't matter if there's 100 customers or 1,000 customers, you're going to speak to somebody and you're going to get fed. Now, sometimes vibes do create a trade-off, right? With this gothic boho thing that I talked about, not everybody wants black walls. Not everybody's emo like me. Some of you guys might know I was in a screamo band in college, and not everybody's like me. But if you do a property like that, you will send a 10 out of 10 signal to some people instead of a 5 out of 10 signal to everybody. That's the concept we're trying to capture here. Now, beyond the vibe, split strategy is the next move for houses in a place like Miami. Because we talked about how there's only 3,000 people who are going to book a 5-bedroom house in Miami, and there's like, say, 10,000 of them in this South Florida example. Well, instead of competing with all 10,000 units, what you can do is you can, on weekdays only, last minute, you can break up the house into 5 individual private room listings. And here's the hack for this, and I can't believe no one else has been talking about this. We've been doing this for about 6 years, but it's more important than ever because of the oversupply in big markets. A house that makes $1,000 a night as a 5-bedroom looks amazing in its photos. And all of the private room inventory, when you go look around these markets, are junk, right? They're very mid. Take that amazing 5-bedroom property and let somebody stay in the private rooms. You can charge $130, $150 a night. People go, this place is banging, this pool's amazing. I've never stayed in somewhere so nice, ever. And your weekdays will get booked. All 5 bedrooms completely booked. You can make as much as the whole 5-bedroom house would make sometimes. Instead of driving your price down for the whole 5-bedroom and there's no customers for you, you can scoop up all these private room listings because now you have the best private room product in the market. You've got a very good 5-bedroom. You're still not the best 5-bedroom in the city. You've got a very good one that makes money on the weekends, but you'll have the best private rooms. And that's a split strategy, okay? As you learn Airbnb, you're going to learn certain customers care about certain things, and you might like certain types of reservations. So you may decide you want longer stays. And this is another way to competitively deviate from the market. If you want longer stays, you can make sure you have a washer dryer. Make sure that your kitchen is fully stocked, right? Ready to go. And you need to photograph it well. This is one of the things most people miss. If you don't show things in the photos, people really don't ever understand it because 6 out of 10 people, they just go straight to the photos. They don't read your listing. So I have something called a kitchen medium shot. I want you to imagine that you're reading a magazine, for like a kitchen, like chef's magazine with recipes. When you see that photo where it has like the pasta in the vase and the pot on the stove already boiling with water, and you have some like tomatoes on the counter and a cutting board, and you got the knife out and like the spices and the oils and everything's kind of like got it spread out, ready to cook. And if you go to like cooking school, they call this mise en place, right? Everything's out ready to cook, so you don't have to find anything. We make a very aesthetic version of mise en place where everything's out, like product photography, like it's a pasta commercial. And you take that photo real clean with the pots and pans on the counter, like or on the stove themselves, maybe even some steam coming out of the pot, and you take this alive photo of your kitchen. That photo is staged and it's alive and it says we're ready to cook. And that ready to cook photo speaks to families that tend to stay longer, right? And you can do this same concept in almost every type of photo that you take, where it's the barrel sauna or the hot tub or the soaking tub. If you got a bathtub, you put one of those bamboo trays. You know, you're laying in the tub and there's a bamboo tray and there's a candle and you got the glass of wine and flowers or whatever. You have that tray that shows that you could be like spa style in your tub, and that speaks to an experience again. This is called eye candy. And I've got a video on that too, obviously, right? A lot of stuff. But eye candy is how you stage your photos to show the life, the personality, the vibe of your listing. And this is still so underrepresented by Airbnb hosts because let me tell you again, Airbnb hosts think that this is real estate, and that's such a big mistake. So they hire real estate photographers like they're taking Zillow listings, right? But it's furnished, but the plates aren't staged on the table. There's no mise en place in the kitchen. There's no hyper close-up of the coffee station showing the decaf and the tea and all the bougie stuff the coffee station has. Nobody does this full of life type of photography. And if you do this, you're ahead of everybody, okay? So now the hot take that I was telling you about, we don't make money off of properties. By now, you might have already realized this. You might realize how we do make our money. We make money off of what the properties can give people. When we design the place, the furniture, the look, the vibe, the location, is it on the beach? Is it next to the Burj Khalifa? We are giving somebody an experience at a location for a lot more money than the property could ever make. This is where the value creation comes from. We make money more so on the furniture, if anything. If somebody asks you, how did you make money on Airbnb? Like, I bought the right furniture. That would probably be the answer, okay? So the reason why we make so much money on Airbnb, where real estate makes way less, is because the property will make a certain amount of money in the market. An empty house goes for $2,000 a month in rent for a 1-year lease, for example. Well, if you break that 1-year lease up to a month-to-month lease, even unfurnished, right, just to stay in place, instead of $2,000, it might be $2,400 for a month-to-month lease. It could be $2,800 for a month-to-month lease. Now let's say it's furnished. A furnished month-to-month could be $4,000 instead of the $2,000 because you made it month-to-month, made it furnished. Now let's say all bills are paid. So you can add the utilities, the electric, and now you even charge more than you pay for your utilities. Now that $4,000 could be like $4,700, $4,800, $5,000. Now let's say nobody has to apply. There's no application, right? Well, cool. There's no lease, no application. Now you're up to like $5,200, $5,400 a month or whatever. That $2,000 property has value adds as we lower the barrier to acquire it and as we fill it with convenience. Then you have the X factor of making a got-to-have-it property. That beautiful place that has the vibe. That is really what's going to make you money because all that stuff, when she took you from $2,000 to $5,000, and then if you flip it into a magical wonderland where people are like, this is the coolest place ever, you go from 5 to 10. I've got students with $2,000 a month properties that are doing $8,000 or $10,000 a month in revenue. Actually, a property 3 doors down. My rent is under $4,000 and we do about $12,000. 3 doors from where I'm at right now. So yeah, you can get a ton out of it. Now, I do have students who buy their properties. I do have students who do co-hosting. There's a lot that you guys can learn about the art of hospitality that doesn't care if you do arbitrage. It doesn't care at all if you do arbitrage. So if you have questions about how to run your business, pricing strategy has been a big thing lately because there's a lot of competition. Yes, learning pricing strategy is big, but a lot of my students who join my program to learn price, they realize that their property is not represented well in photos, like their photos are poor or incomplete or like just poorly taken or whatever, or their design isn't keeping up with the times, not keeping up with their competition or stuff like that. So price is what most people think they need my help from, which a lot of times it's true. Price always matters, but sometimes we're just not really selling the right product. Or we're not selling the product in the right way. It's not just about the right price. So my friends, that probably is still not the full blueprint if you really think about it. But here's the cool thing too. When I started, there was no YouTube channel. There's nothing like this when I started. I just bumped my toes and stubbed it all and figured it out along the way, right? I had 100 properties when COVID hit, 103 properties when COVID hit, and that was a dogfight to stay in business, to figure that out. I learned so much during COVID-19 trying to keep 103 properties afloat. We still ended up down in like the 60s. We still lost a good amount of inventory because Philadelphia was junk, and they really locked up. And it's those moments that have made me the best that I am now. They really trained me. So everything that I can give you is like desk jockey stuff. You're going to learn at the desk right now, write your notes, like get into some communities like my Airbnb automated community on Facebook, really get to know some people, but at one point you have to dive in. You've got to jump into whatever it is. If you don't have a property yet, you'd have to start one. If you're a host, you're going to have to start like really tooling with your prices, something that scares you, right? You have to interact with the thing that scares you, and then you'll grow through experience and through trial. You should test new designs, stuff like that. You should try a new design style. Stop doing the same thing. And if you do cabins, maybe try a treehouse instead. Maybe if you've got extra like land on a property with your cabins, try to doing a stargazing dome or something else. Like start to push your edges because it's the context. A lot of what I'm teaching you now came because I knew one thing here and I knew one thing over here. A student asked a question and I had to tie together two schools of thought and information and come up with stuff. Like this Burj Khalifa thing. Or like one of my students in Greece with the concept of being north of the Chisinau, which you guys wouldn't know what that is, obviously. But all of these things that I've had to coach students on like what their problem is comes from me knowing about a bunch of stuff and then somebody asking me a new question and I have to synthesize the last 5% of unknown information. And you can do the same thing. Or you can ask me, obviously, right? That's why I'm here. But I want to encourage you guys to jump, take the leap, take the risks, grow your businesses in ways that scare you. You're going to become a more well-rounded business owner. And eventually, you're going to do all the cool stuff. Like the last thing I'll talk about to make the most money is we do need to control our costs. And I teach my students to hire their housekeepers by the hour. And then by hiring them by the hour, like this house would probably be $240, $250 to clean on the low side from a housekeeping company. but I can pay my housekeeper for 4 hours at less than 20 bucks an hour and get it done for 80 or less. And this would take 4 hours to clean like that. And that savings of $200-ish per clean, if there's 6 turnovers in a month, that's an extra $1,200 a month in your pocket. So that's just an example of running the business, finding new efficiencies, being a little uncomfortable, hiring your own housekeepers, and paying them by the hour, and boom, more money. Now, if you are a new host and you've never had employees before, God, that's got to sound intimidating, doesn't it? Right? Well, you'll get there. You'll get there. But when the time comes, take the leap, okay? That's all I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to trust me on that. I've done this a long time. So thank you so much for hanging out with me, guys. I love doing these live streams. Every day, we're going to do a live stream a day so I can teach you all about everything you need to know. If you've got a request, put it in the comments. And I'm sorry about the audio on this one. I'll try to fix it next time. It could be the Wi-Fi. With that said, thank you so much. And I'll try to answer all these chat questions directly. Love you guys. I'll see you on the other side.